Welcome to Booming Your Bottom Line, a weekly podcast on how to find, serve, and keep local boomer consumers as your customers. If you are a small business owner, then this podcast is for you. Hosted by Mark Hager, CEO of Age in Place Networks, publisher of AgeInPlace.com, and expert consultant in the boomer consumer industry. And Aaron Murphy, architect, certified Aging in Place specialist, national speaker, and published author on Aging in Place. These two small business owners are going to help you learn what you need to know and step by step what you need to do to grow your company through serving the rapidly growing older consumer niche. Now, get ready to supercharge your business.
Hello and welcome to Booming Your Bottom Line. I'm Aaron Murphy, and with me is my co-host, Mark Hager. We're transitioning from our discussion last week about the importance of educating your customers to now we're going to talk more like we were a session ago about becoming your local expert. Why you need to do it, what you need to do, and how to make that happen.
Right, so if you missed last week, make sure you go back to our archive shows at ageinplace.com/smallbusiness. You'll see the link up there for the podcast and get caught up. You can also subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher. Now, real quick before we get started, I would like to say thanks to John in Columbus. He's been listening in, and I got to talk to him, and he's had some great feedback for us. John, we really appreciate your kind words, and we'll be getting to those topics that we discussed, I promised. I'd also like to say thanks to Scott in Jacksonville for the encouragement last week, and to both of you for the reviews that you left for us on iTunes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I know we say this every week, but go ahead and get out your notebook. I'd really like you to do that. This episode's going to move quick. It's got a lot of info in it, and you're going to be able to use this information today when we get off of this podcast to start improving your efforts and start being seen as the local expert. So let's start with that definition. Mark, what's it mean to be an expert?
Okay, being an expert in your niche requires that you are seen as someone who is knowledgeable, who educates, and you stand out in your industry. You're going to be considered an expert when you are known by name when a certain subject matter comes up. Now, Aaron, I know that you have a particular example that you can share with everybody.
I do. Yeah, absolutely. A quick little backstory here. So I've been public speaking relating to the boomer consumer and aging in place in my own industry as an architect for about 4 years now on about a monthly basis. When I started, I was on stage in front of groups as small as 12 people at a Rotary or Kiwanis meeting or Lions Club. At the high end, more recently, I've been in front of 280 people in a convention center with mayors and commissioners and builders, real estate agents, and designers. Those experiences, coupled with having written a book and getting that published on the subject, it's on Amazon last year, and real consistent effort, persistent social media effort, almost on a daily basis, now I'm at the point where this situation's come to fruition. In the past year, Mark, I've had general contractors in 5 different counties in my area in Western Washington by Seattle contact me when they were meeting with a client, and I'd never met the general contractor or the client before. But in that meeting, a client said, "We'd like to age in place." The contractor stops the meeting, says, "Oh, if that's what you mean, Aaron Murphy needs to be the designer that does this project."
Wow, that is amazing. That's some serious brand recognition. So what would you say, based on your personal experience, that being an expert is going to do for a business owner?
Well, in my situation, as an example for a minute, this effort's equated to over $3 million in construction value in projects, new homes,
Wow.
and remodels related to aging in place at ADM Architecture. If you assume an architect's fee is about, on average, 10% of the construction cost, that would equate to a $300,000 bump in my bottom line over the last 3 years, 4 years maybe. So the point is, just for round numbers, say it's 3 years after it really took off. It's a $100,000 change to my gross revenues for doing what I've done and making that consistent effort. So it could equate to much, much more for you if your products or grocery or transportation, right? I mean, we talked about this in an earlier episode. It could easily equate, we did the math, to $1 million change in your bottom line.
Yeah, good point. That's a huge amount. So how tough was it for you to accomplish this?
Well, nothing worth doing is quick and easy, right? If there was a magic pill, we'd all already be taking it and we'd all be rich. So if you want to get ahead of your competition, you do need to get started, though. Easy, no. Simple, yeah, in the sense that we're walking you through this step by step. But someone's going to do it, okay? It's you or someone else that's probably your competition in your industry. So you can bank on that point. That's why we're here. We'd like you to do it first.
Right. Okay. So it really is worth the effort to become an expert in your industry and the niche in your community.
Absolutely, yeah. I hope my example just shows people that it's completely worth it. That silver tsunami of 10,000 people turning 65 every day started 3 or 4 years ago. It's underway, and someone's going to capitalize on that in a lot of different industries, including yours, whatever business owner industry you are in. So if you can be first, it's good. But doing it is going to be necessary one way or the other.
Yeah, and even if you aren't the first one, you should be one of the few. You know, if you can climb into the position of, you know, the top 2 or 3 of mind, then you can start work on fine-tuning, you know, being the best at it later, but getting there is the important part.
Absolutely, yeah. We talked last week about the reticular activator, that top of mind, who comes to mind, like my example. And there can be a couple. There's a couple in my area, but you got to be one of them, and then you can just be the best. So what do we need to know, or what do we do first, Mark?
Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you have to figure out your position before you start anything. And this is absolutely required for being an authority. And to do that, you need to discover what your knowledge proposition is. And essentially that means you summarize your knowledge into statements to break it down. So for example, you know, the 5 things most people experiencing something, what their results are, you know, or how doing, you know, X will increase your Y. And these are specific to your knowledge, your area of expertise. The second, you have to know what you know. Okay, so having a deep knowledge of your core competencies, you know, you have to do that. But you also, and this is very, very important, this is where being that go-to person comes into play, you have to have a broad knowledge of related things.
Right. Now that makes sense. I know what that means, but can you give us an example for the listener of what it means to understand related material?
Sure. So take me, for instance. Back when I first started AgeInPlace.com, I was really focused on the home, and specifically changes that you could make to your home, whether remodeling or rearranging or safety or whatever. Okay? But I created tons of content around that and got to know that information very, very well. But as the site grew, I also kept learning, and I started learning about all the other things that are related to aging in place, so that I could speak to those things as well. You know, such as, you know, what health conditions people might go through as they grow older, what type of community best supports aging in place, and the list just goes on.
Very good.
So we'll keep moving on. The third thing is that you need to be relevant and current. You have to have your finger on the pulse of what is important to your customers or will be important to your customers. That means you need to read up. You know, you can even use, a great tip is using LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and other social media sites, the articles that other experts in your industry post, you can learn from that stuff. Now the fourth thing is you have to be passionate. People are not moved by facts, they are moved by feelings. And you have to be able to convey your emotions, your passion about the subject, so they can feel it. And that's how you move people to act. Not only act on things that are in their best interest, you know, planning or remodeling or getting some assistance or whatever it is, but also get them to act to buy your product or service. That's going to be part of the package. Now, no matter what media that you're working in, there are 3 things you have to keep in mind, and that is, 1, you have to be clear, you have to have a point, and you have to, everything that you say, whether you're writing it or speaking it, needs to drive to that goal. Okay? You've always got to give your best. Now, Aaron, you know that from speaking, sometimes you're saying the same thing over and over. You know, every time you speak. It doesn't matter if you're saying the same thing, because this information is important for people, but you have to be excited about it. All right?
Yeah.
And you have to have fresh content. This is something that used to irk me to death, and that is people would regurgitate the same thing over and over and over. Now, understanding not everything can be new, there are some things that you're always going to have to tell people because it's important.
Yeah.
But as you go on, keep studying that information. Keep finding new insights and give that to people, but be excited when you're doing it. Now, like we talked last week, you have to be educating people at every turn. You know, it is so important. And this one ongoing act is going to go miles towards continuing to build your expert status. For this effort, there is nothing more important than being an educator.
Absolutely true. And you're totally right. I mean, I got to put on the game face when you get on stage. And
exactly.
I'll be doing it at the Seattle Home Show in a week or two. And yeah, it's, 80% of the PowerPoint's the same as it was 2 years ago, but 20% of it's new because things are evolving.
Exactly.
So how we're getting into the how you accomplish this feat. And that's something Mark and I both worked on. It's essential that you make yourself a plan and stick to this so you can maximize your results. So your assignment for this week are in these next sections. So if you haven't started taking notes, do it now. Pay close attention. We're going to break this down into actionable steps. So first, let's talk about social media outlets. Your first job is to make sure that they're aware you're a resource for them. Help them do their jobs. In fact, there's a website called HARO, Help a Reporter Out, okay? That's the idea. Find out who covers your industry or special interest pieces that relate to you and your industry and what you do for work. Help them find, vet, and create stories for their own readers. That's an example of social media or newspaper. You're going to do this by introducing yourself, offering to be a resource, and then send them tips or partially or nearly finished articles that you've written or someone else has written that they can use. Eventually, they're going to start calling you often and first if you've proven you can find the right subject matter that matters to other people and share that. This approach works well in any media outlet. So again, newspaper, social media, whatever.
Absolutely. And just one note there. I've worked with reporters before, locally and nationally, and I will tell you that people who work at papers, their deadlines are insane. Yeah. So the more information that you can give them, I mean, honestly, if you want local coverage in a local newspaper, and you do, okay, then you need to be like their best friend. I mean, you've got to give them the stuff that they need to get their job done.
Absolutely.
So the next step is to be seen in your community as many as places as you can. Okay, the object here is to get your name out and have it be recognizable. And more than that, you not only want people to think of you, but when they you want them to feel good. Okay? So find places in your community where you can teach and speak about subjects that you're an expert in. Bless you. And do volunteer work. Because nothing spreads your good name like giving unselfishly to a worthy cause. All right, people see that. Now, this means contacting local community organizations, community centers, philanthropic and civic organizations, churches, whatever. Places where you can teach older consumers, family caregivers, or even the people that work with them. Okay, you have to think about the degrees of separation and stay within one or two circles. Out from your ideal clients. Now, we're going to move on next to the website. I just want to say that you need one, and it matters more than you can possibly imagine. Okay, and my idea is that you take a three-pronged approach to your website, and I'm going to outline that here. We'll talk more about your website and other types of internet marketing in future episodes. But for this exercise, this is something that you need to focus on. And you also need to understand that your website is a business tool. It does not have to be the most beautiful thing that was ever created. Function is way more important than form. So, with that in mind, here's the three-pronged approach. First, and most importantly, your website has to be built for your customers. It needs to be an educational resource. It has to be easy to read and easy to navigate, and it must be evident that it was built for them, just for them, okay? So that means it has to be full of information that helps solve problems in their lives. That is so important. Now, number 2, it needs to show that you're a leader in your field and in your community. It has to speak to issues that are going on in your industry that affect them. That is a very important qualifier. Okay, it has to be relevant. It needs to show your clients' successes. It needs to promote causes in your community that you're involved in and you want to get people involved in. And, think in terms of like white papers or case studies. It needs to show how your products and services are similar, have helped people, have solved their problems. And finally, it's got to be easy to contact you. On every page of your website, you need to have your phone number, your address, and a link to a contact form on every single page.
Good points, absolutely. And if you want a couple websites, I think Mark just gave me a couple things to do on my website. But empoweringthematuremind.com, agentplace.com, for the most part, we have followed through on all the things that we just said. Mark just taught me a couple. But finally, let's talk about social media. Let's share other people's valuable and topical information, and then also be sharing yours. I have a rule of thumb that I try to share other people's content about 3 to 4 times for every time I post a blog of mine, for example.
Good tip.
Yeah, so spread as much local good as you can. It shows that you care about the movement as a whole and the industry, not just pushing your own agenda. One note, you share other people's information on social media, it's proof that you're not self-promoting. If you are doing that, if you get out of whack with that ratio, it's a relationship killer. Not only with your customer because it makes you look arrogant,
right,
but also with your potential collaborators. I've gotten many opportunities related to sharing other people's content, and I end up collaborating with them on stage or on a radio show or something in the future with the other professionals. So it amplifies your megaphone, and you'd hate to stuff a sock in that by looking self-serving.
Absolutely, and I don't want to beat that to death, but I would just like to say that one of the foundational things about social media is that it is all about sharing. People don't mind if you talk about yourself some, but most people use that as a way to learn and be entertained. So sharing that good local content from other people is super duper important. So that was a really great point. All right, so I think we're going to stop here for today. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we'll talk more about each piece of this expert puzzle as it relates to other topics that we've outlined for the rest of the year for small business owners. And if you like the podcast, I ask you, please let us know. And you can email us at smallbusiness@agentplace.com. And when you do, let us know how we're doing. Let us know things that you'd like to hear about, or maybe even roadblocks that you're running into that we might be able to help you address. We are happy to do that. And please go to iTunes, search for Booming Your Bottom Line, and leave us a 5-star review. Both of those things are going to keep encouraging us to keep doing this, and those ratings help other people find us in iTunes.
Absolutely. And just as a reminder, go ahead and check out that small business section at agentplace.com. If you haven't done it yet, sign up for that newsletter. That's the way you're going to be sure you receive all the valuable information and resources that Mark's put together, and now we're putting together as a joint venture effort. And you'll be the first to know when something new is coming up and what's new on the site. So you could also follow us on Twitter at AgentPlacePros and at Aaron D. Murphy. Have a fantastic week, everybody. Be well, be blessed, and boom your bottom line.
Thanks so much for listening to Booming Your Bottom Line with Mark Hager and Aaron Murphy. To learn more about starting, building, and growing a local business that profits in the older consumer niche, just visit the website at agentplace.com/smallbusiness. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter while you're there. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can email us at smallbusiness@agentplace.com. Fill out the contact form on the website or give us a ring at 865-236-1247. Booming Your Bottom Line is a joint venture of agentplace.com and Empowering the Mature Mind.